Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the St. Louis podcast for October 27th, 2023. I'm your glorious host today, Garrett Atkins, and beside me is Eric Brown. We are two partners at Vi Media, as well as a holding company that owns multiple home service businesses and a jet charter company called Mogul Holdings. Today we have Shaun Hayes, an author, speaker, entrepreneur, and felon on the St. Louis podcast, and we're going to get into the weeds with him and his business. But before we do, this is the St. Louis podcast where each and every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, we drop an episode on all major podcasting audio and video platforms such as Spotify, Apple, YouTube, major social media platforms, and more, where we meet with the most badass people and creators to talk about business, entrepreneurship, and current events. And sometimes Helen Keller. Now let's jump into it with Shaun. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me this morning.
Yes. It's a pleasure having you on. So real quick, before we actually give a guest bio, let's give a shout out to Garrett for coming back on the podcast after, I think, 30 plus weeks, Matt. Is that right? 30 plus weeks?
Oh, man, it sounds like it.
Somehow he has his legs and arms back and he's not in a wheelchair. So
I was suffering from chronic time sickness.
It's
a serious
time blindness.
See, that's how bad I am and how sick I am.
We'll talk about it later.
Time blindness.
Well, as you said, we got Shaun Hayes on the podcast, author, speaker, entrepreneur, and felon, author of The Great Choice, also a professional corporate speaker, CEO at Allegiant Bancorp, headquarters in St. Louis. It was a Russell 2000 company, one of the largest publicly held bank holding companies. After starting your first business at age 16, you went to open several other businesses, head of corporate banking for a large St. Louis bank by 26, bought your first bank by 29, CEO of the bank until 32, and then it looks like you sold it
until 32.
Or excuse me,
32.
There we go. There's a lot of numbers here I'm reading through. And you sold it eventually for a hell of a lot of money. So we read some articles, some interesting stuff about you, Shaun. So back in the early 1990s and 2000s, you were described as the golden boy of St. Louis banking, which I'm curious to get your take on that terminology. So UMB Bank ran that for the corporate side, eventually renamed to Allegiant, then made several acquisitions to St. Louis to grow the bank assets from $11 million to $2.5 billion. So that's a hell of an increase.
With a B.
Yeah, with a B. So with that said, that's a lot of good stuff there. Now, the question becomes, of course, where did it go wrong?
There was a thing called a recession in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And when real estate went down, I did not understand the correlation between all my investments in banks and in real estate.
Okay.
And I took a huge fall. And maybe later we'll talk about, I think, another big correction coming in real estate.
Yeah, why not just talk about it right now?
Well, I think that the trifecta is here. Interest rates are way up.
Mm-hmm.
You're a very young man. I might ask you, what was the lowest home mortgage you ever had?
Well, I've never had a mortgage.
Yeah, same.
Okay, well, that's a whole nother story. That's actually intelligent.
By the time we had enough money to get a mortgage, well, I should say we put all of our baskets into Vi. So I would say it wasn't until really probably the pandemic, right before the pandemic, where it would have made sense. And then I was looking at home loans, and then prices went through the roof, interest rates went through the roof. And right now I'm contemplating, I'm just renting. I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to sit and chill for a second because I don't want to take the risk of getting a property and it going down or getting an interest rate and having to deal with interest rates. Everyone will tell you interest rates are going to come back down, right? Like next year. Well, if you listen to what the Fed chair just said, he sounds like we're potentially going for another increase. But he definitely makes it sound like we're not going down anytime soon because he said the rates haven't been high enough for anywhere long enough. And this was just this week. So yes.
Eric, you're right on target. And by the way, if you read the journal yesterday, it said it's the worst time to buy a house since 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're wise. And that's really what happened to me was I made all that money in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, and it kept going up and up, and then it came down. And I think we've seen an unprecedented time like that. My first home mortgage, by the way, was 12.5%.
That's crazy.
Yeah, now you're still 5 points from that, but it gives you a little bit of idea how rates can go. And I think the Fed chairman was on target. They're not done raising rates. They're not done letting them going down. And there's a whole lot of people will get hurt.
Yeah.
But there'll be opportunities for people like yourself who waited.
Well, so I hear that talking point a lot with like it used to be 12 and a half, but when it used to be 12 and a half, the prices reflected that interest rate, right? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because right now prices increased based on there being a 2% interest rate, let alone 8%. So mortgages have like doubled, right?
Right.
And the price is still up, but it doesn't seem, it seems like in some markets, in some cities, there's breaking points, but in St. Louis, we definitely haven't reached it. I haven't seen prices go down. I still talk to real estate agents and they say they have multiple bids, they have cash offers. I don't know when it's going to stop.
Well, no one ever does, but it's kind of like this. We always say it's a new time in history. It's fun listening to you guys before the show started, talking about what's going on in the world. History repeats itself. It does in some form or some fashion. And 15, 18 years ago, it's a new era. Things aren't going to change. And then all of a sudden they did. It's no different in the late 90s when tech kept going up and up and up. And
Tech
then,
bubble.
then it busted. Things just don't go northeast, as we say in the finance industry all the time. You know, they're not always positive. Usually it's, I always draw, it does go northeast, but it's over time.
Yes.
With ups and downs. And I think we're coming into a period like that. I made the error of I didn't appreciate the correlation between banking and real estate. When you have real estate problems, you have bank problems.
Yeah.
And we've started having bank problems about 7 or 8 months ago. Now real estate problems are coming. Interest rates are higher. And so I made a big mistake, made a lot of money. And then I lost a lot of money.
Yep.
And hopefully you learn from your lessons. But we'll cover a lot of things, I'm sure. But watch what's going to happen in the next few years. The world isn't going to end, by the way, but it's going to be tough sledding.
Well, so in '08 it was residential real estate. Is it commercial this time?
Absolutely. And I think when you look, especially office, the world has changed. People don't use offices the way they have.
Yep.
And secondly, they built so many apartments. And if you look at all the apartments they built, most of those are on 5, 7, and 10-year loans. And if you look back, rates hadn't moved for 15 years. And now in the last 18 months, they've really risen. And so as those loans come due, people will hand the keys back because the term in the industry. And they'll start handing keys back, and apartments will drop in value. And all of a sudden, people will pay less in rents. And all of a sudden, then the world changes.
Interesting. Yeah, because... Well, in large cities, they're talking about turning commercial space into residential. Like in New York, they have all of the commercial space and no one's down there. Like
I've never heard of that.
So I watch YouTube channels, and it's really interesting. I don't even know how I got into this content occasionally, where they walk around like downtown. They'll walk around downtown New York. Louis Rossman was a big one, and he just walked blocks, and there would be no real estate. Everything is dead. There's this new guy that popped up on YouTube now doing it in San Francisco, going to all these places that used to be bustling, now is completely dead. There's no businesses. If there is, there's like one store on like a whole street. It's crazy. And so not only like the commercial office space on, off the street, right? But also the massive structures themselves that are, however big in New York and these different cities. But I guess the other thing is it's all wrapped up in pension funds, right?
Right. So, usually we say widows and orphans own everything at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that's pension funds, retirements, and things like that. The interesting thing is it won't help St. Louis, but other metropolitan areas will see that. But the bright people that I look at in your world are saying that's the new Amazon warehouses. It doesn't matter that it's vertical. They're not, the packages Amazon's sending aren't huge things. They're small things. And you can use elevators in existing buildings. You don't have to add plumbing like you do in residential and things like that. The reason why St. Louis's downtown had a renaissance about 20 years ago, and I was very involved in that, was those were old warehouse buildings that were so subsidized by the state of Missouri. 33 kinds of tax credits. I think it's a little ways before the office buildings get that kind of treatment because I don't see the world that loving, plus governments need money.
That's true.
And when they need money, they're stingy.
Yes.
Well, one of the things we went over, or that Eric said rather, was that you're a felon. Clear that up for us.
Oh, nothing to clear up. It's the truth. I in 2009, in 2008, I was losing millions of dollars a month. And in 2009, I engineered a transaction that I'd done dozens of times before, maybe almost 100 times before, where we bought bad assets, meaning people's loans that weren't paying, and then worked them out. And I put together a transaction, and I believe virtually every decision in life, when I mean major ones, not What am I going to have coffee? Am I going to turn left or right? But big decisions are made by fear and greed.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, obviously, I was in deep fear, and I was experiencing the need for greed. And so I engineered a transaction. We bought a lot of debt at a big discount. At the 11th hour, one of the institutions we were buying it from said, you have to buy this loan. Up until this point, I was involved in none of the transaction personally, because in the U.S., when you own more than about 10% of any bank, in my case, I own 54%, you can't do business with yourself. But in order to get this transaction through, they said, you have to take this one good loan that you're involved with and put it in the pool. Once I made that decision, I committed a felony. And I knew it right then, Garrett. And the interesting—
Why'd you do it?
I did it because I saw millions of dollars of profit. And the way this had worked dozens and dozens of times before, you just worked out of them, and that loan was performing and things would have gone well. But like I say on shows like this, and actually you're one of the more fun ones, is it isn't like you rob a 7-Eleven and somebody calls 911. When it's a financial crime, it takes years. So it was 7 years before I was indicted for it. But I knew the moment I did it that I committed a crime. I knew it was wrong, but I did it based on, at that point, the fear of the situation I was in and the greed opportunity it created for me.
So it sounds like this was just a common occurrence even before this happened. That said, how did you get caught? What went wrong?
Well, this time was the only time I'd broken the law doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd never done that. I was never— that the instance that creates the legal problem is I was an owner of a piece of property that was in the pool of assets. I'd never done that before. And had it not been when it was, and I justified it because you don't, 95% of the people don't commit crimes, just commit, something, there's a trigger. And in my case, it was, I could look at myself in the mirror and say, I didn't steal money, because I didn't. But I had a very technical violation that was illegal day one. And when you get indicted, you don't get indicted as the lawyers did. They took a sheets of paper and they said, you have 10 counts, but it's really the same thing 10 times over.
Sure.
And there were co-defendants in the case. And if I could have gotten my trial severed, this wouldn't have not made me, I would still been guilty technically. They said, we can beat this. But the way that the government does is they had other defendants, and one of those defendants had caused 212 people to lose their homes, none of which I was involved in. I didn't own any. I had no ownership, but they were co-defendant. And when they said, you're going to set the same table for 3 weeks, and they're going to bring 212 families up there, you don't think a jury isn't going to convict everybody? And so I was already guilty. Now you're just negotiating.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
So it says here, 3 troubled banks: Sun Security, St. Charles County, Sun Security Bank, Truman Bank, XL Bank, all 3 failed, costing the FDIC $193 million. So that was from that one trade?
No. And what happened was I was an owner in all 3.
Okay.
The 2 of them, there wasn't a crime involved.
Okay.
Yeah. But the one thing I also learned about this, and I'll say again, I was guilty, but I had great press. You mentioned I was the fair-haired boy forever. And as I always said, I was never as smart as they thought I was or as dumb as they think I am.
Sure.
But I haven't had a decent article in 10 years. The press doesn't really write anything from a certainly not objective standpoint. And when the government puts it out, it must be true.
Sure.
So when the government puts out a press release, it is word for word. And you all are in the media world. You can't compete with people who print ink. So my lawyers have said, you shut up and you take it. You don't like it, but that's life. I did it to myself. I don't blame anybody else. I've always taken responsibility. And, it's like anything, you're not a failure until you quit. And so for me, from the guy who, started businesses, like it said in the book at 16, just you rebound and you come back and life's good again. It's great, actually. But I will tell you this, and because you're bright guys, and I'm more impressed with the stuff you're doing than what I'm here to talk about. And that's great, because meeting people like you give me hope. But the point is,
we need some of that.
Yes, we do. Sometime write a book. I was the guy, if you went to school, I would have been least likely to ever write anything. Number one. Number two, when I was going through all this, a woman who runs a big speakers bureau said, Shaun, you need to write a book. And I said, this is a quote, Gail, I'm not that interesting.
Yep.
And then a few years later, I'd read a bunch of books. I said, Gail, I'm still not that interesting, but I'm more interested in most of these people. But the point was, when it was done, I had an African-American businessman I'd known about 3 years and an older Caucasian guy I've known about 40, and they both had read the book, and they told me the same thing. They said, do you not feel free? And gentlemen, I feel the best I've felt in my life. You know, it's just a whole refreshing thing. And when you've got a story and you guys are out there doing crazy fun things, making money, you're making mistakes. The good news is, you know, it's not baseball where 300 gets you in the Hall of Fame. You can, you know, you hit 700 or 800 in the business world. Sometimes you hit 900. Those are things you want to pass on. And I speak to groups every week all over the country. I'm on radio, TV, and podcast all over the world. And you want to transmit that knowledge, because what I learned 40 years ago, I had some great mentors. In those days, they were virtually all men, but along the way, I picked up a woman who changed my opinion of how the game's played. But what they gave me was priceless. And what your job is to give it to somebody else. Your generation calls it playing forward. But I think that's a great thing. So I would challenge you, you know, in whatever time you get, give back that. You don't need to give money. Give that time and that experiences back, because you'll help other young men and women. The other thing that I talk about a lot in public, and since I've been so impressed with you guys, surround yourself with good people. For years, I had 4 people, 3 men and a woman, that I met with probably 3 or 4 times a month. And I would not have done what I did had I still had that group. And I tell people, you want tough people. They were kind of people, if I ever said...
So why is that? Just accountability?
Accountability.
Okay.
And you don't get it from your partner, your significant other.
Correct.
Because that's a different kind of relationship. In a business standpoint, you need, you know, it's like, is language really bad on, can I say what
no,
you
you're
say?
fine.
Whatever you want.
Well, okay. Well, I was called a son of a bitch about 3 years ago in a meeting with a guy you would probably certainly know of. And he called me that, and I looked at him, and I'll call him Eric. And I said, Eric, you know, years ago, that might have hurt my feelings. I'm going to think about that. And I thought about it, because we met once a month in a business we were involved in. And I came back, I said, you know, you're right, because I can say no. And you got to have people around you who can say, everybody wants to say yes. Everybody wants to be the good cop. Everybody wants to be the guy on the white horse. But at the end of the day, you need people around you who can say no, or say, I had one mentor when I first started, who you could sit down with him and talk to him for 15 or 20 minutes or an hour, and he would take that time. And you could get up and you would have turned 178 degrees, but he did it by asking you a question after a question. He didn't just say, you dumb idiot, do you not get it? He would just keep, and that's what you need around you, are people who'll do that. And you can get it for very little, you know, money, or find it, because there's people out there who'll do that, but they can't be people who won't challenge. And whoever said you're as rich as the 5 people you hang with, or you're smart as, that's pretty accurate. You know, if you're not hanging with people who are brighter and tougher, and I'm on the 4th time I'm on a TV show in Australia this weekend, and there are questions that came in last night, and I was answering them. But, you know, it's that same thing of, you have to, and this is my expertise for 30 years, and then I screwed up. I knew what I didn't know. And then when you forget what you don't know, that's when you get bit. And I got bit bad.
So, okay, so you had the partners. Now, why weren't they with you? So they weren't with you after you sold?
No, once I sold about, here's
okay.
And you guys are, again, I see some similarities. I achieved great success from 20 to 40. Well, most of the people I did business with in my 20s were 30, 40, 50 years older.
Yep.
And all these people were older. They're all but one is dead. So, you know, and the other thing is, when you spend 15 years in a group, it's hard. It's like a marriage. It's worse. And so you get around people like that, and things happen. And in our case, after 15 years, we were tired. We weren't tired. We were just tired. And age played in and things like that. And what I didn't do was reinvent myself in that regard.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, we have a group that's, some of us have known each other for 15 plus years, just spent, like Eric and I have known each other since sophomore year of high school. And I have a couple other people in our group that are like that, and accountability is huge. I will say we're all a bunch of, you know, A-type personalities or high D-type personalities.
I'm a Sigma male, actually, so show some respect.
Whatever that means.
That's only 6% of the population, I think.
That's a shout out to the Sigmas out there. You know who you are.
I'm confused.
Really? Okay, yeah. Give me some qualities that say that you're a Sigma male, Eric. Let's go ahead and list those for me real quick.
I kind of forget what a Sigma male actually is.
Well,
that's my point. Thank you.
Up.
It's better than alpha because you're like a smart alpha, dude. You have like a.
So you're not a Sigma male, but I am.
I will let you read the description and then come back to me with that.
A Sigma male is a man within the sociosexual hierarchy who chooses to live life outside of the normal social dominance hierarchy. So I'm out, dude. I'm outside, bro. I'm playing on the outside.
They threw sexual in there.
Sociosexual.
Sociosexual. That's my new.
Sigma males share traits with the alpha, though their tendency to walk outside of the lines of traditional social dominance hierarchy sets them apart.
We're gonna. Yep. Okay.
I don't even know what the hell any of that means.
I'm a Sigma alpha. But that said,
they're often called lone wolves or wanderers. There you go.
So, just give you an example,
So
right? Keanu
friends.
Reeves is an example. So, compare yourself to him and let me know how that goes. All right? No.
Well, the fourth movie should be burned and never be shown again.
I
So
love John Wick 4. That's literally. I honestly
You're
just
lying.
I just got done telling
one of the worst
people,
movies I've ever seen in my life.
Literally just got done telling 4 people that it might be my favorite action flick over the James Bond films now. I'm not even joking. It's that good.
Eric
It's super good.
This take is so bad. Oh my god.
I think that's a common take.
John Wick 4.
Yeah, no, it did really well.
I am
loved it.
amazed.
Yeah.
That movie was awful.
94 on Rotten Tomatoes.
How many times can he get shot on that stupid ending scene where he's falling down the stairs?
I was going to say, how much do you
I
hate,
wanted to go to bed. That movie sucked.
Do you hate the entire movie or do you hate just the end where he's like getting
If they
shot
could
down
make
the
that
stairs?
movie an hour and a half instead of 3 hours, it would be all right.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
That said, yeah,
Anyways.
we have a group that's been tied for 15 plus years, about 4 of us or so. Well, 3 of us and then someone else that came in along the way. And I will say that being able to hold each other accountable is like 100% key. And sometimes we've been good about that. Sometimes we've been bad about that. But you said it best. I mean, you used the word challenge. You just need people who are going to challenge the status quo of whatever you're deciding to do or not do at the time.
Exactly.
That's one. I mean,
it's also hard to find people that are actually going to be honest and say shit.
Well, because they want to be accepted. They want to be not everybody wants to be the good
yes
guy.
man. Well, that's why, are you familiar with Logan Paul?
Yeah.
So he is known as the guy that surrounds himself with yes men. As far as like him being involved in scams, like doing this whole fighting thing, his fallout with his brother, like he's like the influencer. He's known as like the king of the influencer of the yes man. And so, anytime you see that person, they're always like, why are you making that decision? But it's always because, they have no one in the corner being like, are you sure about this? Does this even make sense for X, Y, and Z? Can you at least think about this? There's none of that. So he just makes poor decisions left and right.
Yeah, having a mastermind group and a group of people around you that not only challenge you, but and this is something that's even harder to find in my opinion, but also come up with their own unique ideas as solutions to whatever they do challenge you on. That's even harder to find. I feel that most people are stuck, A, not being challenged, but also B, not being challenged and then provided a better alternative to whatever they're being challenged on, within business at least. And I'm sure that the same could be said about regular
You're talking about when
friendships.
someone brings up a problem, they don't have a solution?
My favorite thing.
By the way, Garrett, one of the men would ask me something. If I ever said it's because of the way we've always done it, we changed it because he had that very mindset. I watched him walk into a factory one day, and there was a guy who wanted to do business with us, and I said, I'm going to bring one of my partners along. And by the time we were done, the guy that ran it was a Harvard undergrad, Stanford MBA, and he walked up and he said, that guy gave me like $1 million worth of consulting this morning because he's telling me your lines are not run the right way. Somebody who walks in to somebody's plant, they've never met the guy, and immediately says, you don't have a beeping idea what you're doing. No wonder you're not making money. That's the kind of people I had around me. Very bright, had a solution, and you had to defend everything you did. And that's what makes a game fun. And then when you get around and you surround yourself with a bunch of people who are yes people are easy to find.
Mm-hmm.
And
they are.
Look at politics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's true.
Where I've been, other than suffering from that time, what is it? Time sickness, but not
Time
sickness.
blindness.
Time
Yeah,
blindness.
other than suffering from time blindness, I've been working on a video game brand, and we just brought on, and it's a video game journalism brand. And we brought on an editor-in-chief, and before he came onto the team, pretty much anything that I came up with an idea about was immediately taking place or happening. Bring him on, and I find myself constantly defending absolutely everything that I do, and he'll let in. It's not like he disagrees on everything until the end of time. He'll end up saying, okay, that's a good idea after I do so, but rarely do I bring up an idea and it's immediately being carried out, at least within the journalism part of what we're doing. He's a much better writer than I am, but he also understands the code of ethics within journalism a lot better than I do, simply because I wasn't a journalist by trade ever.
There's a code of ethics in journalism?
No, there's not. That's the problem.
Someone
That's
show me that. Yeah, where is that document?
He actually came to work for, which is, by the way, called Mogul Gaming, which is our holding company on the video game side. He actually came to work with me because he saw me post a long status on X, formerly Twitter, about how fucked up the journalism field is and how passion's completely gone and how it's turned into a transactional fuckfest.
You got to be on
just
Substack
dishonesty.
or something. You got to be independent.
Well, X allows 25,000 characters and 4 images placed within the article, so to speak.
Can journalists ever make money just from Twitter though?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, we're not even doing full-blown articles, and we're doing about 30 million views. And I imagine a journalist who's been in the field for a long time, say someone at the New York Times, not a fan, but if they would just start posting their articles on X rather than the New York Times website, instead of sharing their ad revenue, well, basically they're getting paid a salary at the New York Times, right? Instead of getting paid a locked-in salary, they can just take their business, their personal brand, start posting on X, get paid a ad revenue share off of the views on their content, and now they're dominating their own life rather than working for someone else building out the New York Times.
Well, do you think they're all evil at the New York? Do you think they go in evil at these organizations? They go in the New York Times.
I think some of them work for outside companies that are more or less placed there.
No, I mean just the clickbait shit. I mean, like you're not actually you're not providing anything of value.
It's not really about that. That's what's wrong. They're all.
But my point is, do you think
an agenda?
Do you think they go in wanting to be a good journalist, the majority, or do you think a majority already go in?
Two things. One, yes, some go there because, oh my God, I've always wanted to work at the New York Times. I'm an extremely passionate individual.
Yeah.
They land the job because of their skill set on writing, but then they get inundated or drink the Kool-Aid more or less to pushing an agenda that everyone else there is also pushing with them. And then two, some of them know exactly what the fuck's going on there. They're more or less placed there, and it's much easier for them to have that kind of person push said agenda. That's what I think.
To reinforce that, there was a poll not too long ago where it was like a huge majority of journalism writers, specifically in big industries, go in there, get told, hey, you're a good writer, but your stuff's not being read. You suck. You need to do it our way. They change it to more of a social media clickbaity way, and then they make money. And
it's like you're a really good writer, but no one's paying attention. So.
I mean, that's literally what's happening with us. I mean, what Matt said is true. Our editor-in-chief, I read his first review of a video game called Hi-Fi Rush. It was basically a work of art. I mean, he did a great job writing the piece, but in its current format where it was like not spaced out, there's no all caps headline, there's not all of these things that I know for a fact, based on my experience, get people to actually stop scrolling and read a piece.
Yeah.
Quite literally one of the first things we did, and we just finished it yesterday, was change the format to be more social media friendly per se. And now
you wanted to read like an AMP article almost, even though AMP articles are the worst from Google, but
yeah. I mean, you just want it to where it says no more than 3 to 5 sentences per line, and then enter, next line, because people, their attention spans are so short to where if you don't have it formatted in such a way to where they feel a dopamine hit after every fucking small little paragraph you put together, and instead you wrote it the traditional way where it's like 10 to 20 sentences per paragraph, they'd see that immediately move on to the next piece because it's too much of a time commitment. Where if you have it spaced out in a certain way, it tricks their brain, even though it could be the same exact length, it tricks their brain that the time commitment is not going to be as long.
Double space between
Yeah.
Think of it this way, right? Now, from 10 years ago, the average attention span has shrunk by 70%.
Hey there, St. Louis podcast listeners. We've got some exciting news from our sponsor, Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, led by the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Lee. Mark Lee of Farmers Insurance is recruiting agency owners here in St. Louis.
That's right, Garrett, and everyone knows what Farmers Insurance is, and if they don't, they will now.
Yes, it's kind of a household name. That said, as many of you know, a large part of our audience is made up of badass business owners, entrepreneurs, and top producing sales professionals with an open mind like yourself. Farmers Insurance is currently searching for driven individuals who aspire to own their own business or already own their own business and want to add another income stream to join the Farmers Insurance brand and own their own insurance agency.
This is a stellar opportunity to build your own insurance agency from scratch, take over an existing agency, or if you're just a slow roller, we know you the guys out there and ladies, get paid to train under an existing successful agency owner before starting your own.
Holy shit, Eric. That means that whether you have experience as a business owner or you've never heard the word business before in your life, there's a pathway to owning your own business through Farmers Insurance Agency led by Mark Lee.
That's right. You can become a Farmers Insurance business owner even if you've been homeless in the past, just like you.
Yeah, thanks.
If you've ever dreamt of being your own boss, building a team under a reputable brand, and making a difference in your community by offering top-tier auto, home, and commercial insurance to consumers and businesses in your area, Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, led by the godlike man himself, Mark Lee, has the perfect opportunity for you.
Visit insurancecareerstl.com to speak with Mark Lee, the district manager of Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, to become a Farmers Insurance agency owner today.
Did you hear that, St. Louis? Go visit insurancecareerstl.com. Insurancecareerstl.com. That is INSURANCE. Career, CAREERSTL.com.
To become a business owner today, again, one more time, visit insurancecareerstl, as in St. Louis.com today, right now, this second, or reach out to us at stlouispodcast.com and we'll introduce you to Mark Lee ourselves. And I promise he won't spell out insurance and career to you.
Now back to the show.
So
it went from 10 seconds to 3?
So yeah, I mean, like, you're talking from normal to like a squirrel brain.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So we're talking about journalism real quick. I didn't want to bring. We don't have to talk about Israel Palestine, but I did want to say, did you guys see the article it went viral that like Israel sent over a rocket to the hospital, and then
that's what it's looking like.
Hamas went ahead and released the news. The New York Times and everyone ran with it immediately, and then they all had to backtrack because Al Jazeera had video, somehow on accident had video of them launching a rocket attack from the Gaza Strip, and then one of them literally going down at the exact same time the thing happened.
So who did it?
It was an accident. It was an accident by not Hamas. Apparently there's another terrorist organization in Gaza Strip.
So
and they were the ones that launched it from the Gaza Strip. It was supposed to go to Israel. But it fucked up and went.
And that's like 100%.
And also apparently, yes. And also apparently, this isn't proven yet, it didn't actually hit the hospital, it hit the parking lot next to the hospital. And the videos they were showing of like this hospital that was on fire and destroyed was from a completely different part of Gaza Strip. So New York Times, it was everyone. CNBC, CNN, all of them ran the story. All of them said the same thing, and they got it straight from Hamas and did no research.
Yeah, because they want to be the first one to post it. They
But
want to
that's
be like, I
insane.
was
Yeah,
the first
being-
one.
You're
I
like
did it
starting a
first.
fucking war
Yes,
by releasing that information.
I-
Like
I've
that's
lo-
so fucking crazy.
I've learned why that happens, and sometimes I do wonder how.
And then they
much of it-
backtrack. Like they change a couple things and then they'll re-release it and then change some more things. So it's never just, hey, we need to correct this. It's like small changes.
So all of what you're saying is like exactly what I mean. I've learned so much past 4 months, but 2 years.
That came
That's
out yesterday.
literally what
yeah.
happens. Because
Yeah.
my biggest post ever.
Well, also,
single,
they're listening directly from Hamas. They're taking it directly from Hamas and just putting it as news.
as long as it's an official source, which
It's crazy
Wow.
that Hamas has a PR person. I mean, they're an organization. I guess it makes sense.
I mean, they're just a political organization that's labeled as and I don't know a lot, but from my understanding, they're a
definitely-
long-time
they're def-
political organization over
They're
there.
definitely a terrorist
And
organization.
probably, but they
Well,
they,
based
they
on-
were initialized as a political organization.
Yeah. Based
not
on what they
mistaken.
did a couple weeks ago, I can definitely say they're terrorists.
That said,
I think by definition.
um,
But yeah, journalism. It's fun.
Yeah, I
No
was
one
just
does
go-
their job.
I was just gonna say
Just
that
like politics. Just like politicians. Politicians and journalists. Who else doesn't do their job? Who out here doesn't? Some teachers? No, I'm just kidding. Love you, teachers.
Dang, dudes, take shots
Sorry.
at everyone.
Sorry.
Like, what are you
Sorry.
doing?
No, being the first is definitely key. My biggest post ever was one post did 12.9 million views, and it was the reason it did so well is I listened to a Japanese earnings call, translated it with Google Translate. Since no one else wanted to do that at 3:30 in the morning, I was the first one or second one in America to post about this story, and it was about Nintendo. It was about Nintendo carrying over Nintendo accounts from the Switch 1 to the Switch 2, which implies that all of your digital purchases will carry over.
Oh, I was about to say you're getting somewhere here.
Yeah.
It's like Switch one. Like,
Yeah,
gives a shit.
No.
12.9
Well, tons of people
apparently
gave a
millions of people.
They actually gave a lot of shits. Now that it was
Have
so
you
big,
heard-
it got community noted.
Have you heard about how Nintendo started?
Yeah. They
Their
started
card
as
trading
it was actually
built for the what are they, cartels in Japan?
it was like an occult kind of card company. So they made cards that were kind of like best described as tarot cards, more or less.
But they were used for gambling,
They're used for all sorts of
like
things.
playing games.
Tarot cards aren't just used for tarot reading; they're also used for a game.
But apparently these cards used to be illegal in Japan. Like playing cards were illegal because I think like gambling was illegal.
Yeah, but they're over 100 years old. They're like one of the older companies over there.
They have a lot to do with like the mafia or mafia, whatever the hell they're called in Japan.
They might have. I don't know.
I watched a YouTube video on them a couple weeks ago. It's super interesting.
They might pay some of our bills, so I don't think they're related to the mafia at all. That's fake news.
Yeah, well, I'll release the article. We'll put we'll put the link in the description.
Yes, but no, they're over 100 years old, and they didn't even video games obviously weren't around then. They didn't get into video games till the 80s. They had been around since the early 1900s, like 1908 or something.
They're over 100 years old. Yeah.
So, but that said, let me pull this up.
That said, UMB Bank, you were the head of corporate banking at the age of 26. That seems like an important position for someone of that age. How the hell did you get that job?
It's banking was an interesting name. My parents were both entrepreneurs, and they said, you can do anything you want to do, but don't be a banker.
Yeah.
Because seriously, the dumb child went to banking.
Yep.
So the competition wasn't that great, I'll say that. But no, I came along at a time when banking turned into sales.
Yeah.
And we were salespeople, and we went at it just like great sales companies. And so we had success, and I was fortunate to always be in the right place at the right time. And I'm not from St. Louis, and I came here almost 40 years ago and had a 53-year-old former paint salesman working for me, but who had been a star athlete at Country Day, and all of his peers were CEOs of companies. So I got thrown out of, I say, every decent door in St. Louis. And I had a wonderful privilege of I didn't go to school here.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't put me in a box. And you all know when you live in St. Louis, you better know what high school and what parish you're in.
So you think that was good that you weren't from here?
Exactly.
Oh.
Because if you're from here and you're not from something acceptable,
Yeah.
then you're in a different box. But when you're not from here, they can't put you in a box. So I was just right place, right time. Ton of fun, though. Ton of fun.
I've never thought about fibbing about what high school I went to, but now I am.
Why?
Because maybe people want to hear me say, CBC instead of Eureka High School. It's going to be more clout, more credibility.
When the hell are you telling people what high school you went to? I mean, I know we're in St. Louis, but when are you
Not that
telling
often.
people?
Well, Rockwood's a great school district. I will say that.
There we go.
But there is, you got to look at it. I was arguing with the county over property taxes yesterday, and I was explaining to them that something in Brentwood is not worth what it is. Actually, I use Rockwood, Parkway, Clayton, or Ladue. It's the same building, same spot, same everything, but schools make a difference.
Yep.
So, but no, it's an interesting town, I have to say, and that's why it's been refreshing to listen to you guys, because to me, what's wrong with this town is bright young people leave, because this is not Mecca for doing something. It's not the entrepreneurial capital of the world.
Everyone leaves. Everyone leaves. There's like, I was just having this discussion last night, actually, as I was smoking some cigars with this. I was like, where are all of like the heavy hitters in St. Louis? And the theory was a lot of them stay in hiding until they're ready to leave and get the hell out of here. Interesting theory.
Every time I'm in a meeting with someone from East Coast or West Coast, they double take the fact that we're in St. Louis and then ask why the hell we're here.
Right. I used to be in New York. I'd be on Wall Street all the time because you're a public company. And I had a brilliant, beautiful young woman one day from JP Morgan go, "Where are the cattle in St. Louis?" And I said, "Excuse me?" And she goes, "Well, isn't that like a cow town?" And I asked the logical question: have you ever been west of the Rockies or east of the west of the Appalachians or east of the Rockies on a plane? No. Why would I? And we lose bright young talent because of all those things of why would you live here? It's
low cost of living.
Yeah, we all think that, yeah, but what about low cost of opportunity? And it breaks my heart. I'm a big fan of St. Louis. It's been great to me.
Mm-hmm.
I used to admire all kinds of heavy hitters. At one time, I was considered one of them, but that's just a generational thing that's missing. We're very parochial. This is a tough town on people who aren't from here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we move much slower than, say, people who live in Chicago or New York City, for example, after talking to many people who live in those two places specifically. And but I will say nowadays, with the amount of business you can conduct over the internet, that has made things a lot easier and has
It's not the same, though.
I mean, it's not the same. I'm old school. I like phone calls and in-person meetings. I don't really care for texting or emails.
Getting on a Zoom call and trying to sell someone just fucking makes me want to bang my head against a wall.
Well, I brought you guys a copy of the book, and there's a story in there. I'm a big believer in pressing flesh and burning shoe leather.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get in the car, I'll walk, I'll get on a plane. I want to look in the eye, because I can walk in a room, I can look in the eye, I can know right then if I'm going to win or not. Or am I really going to have to play my A game to come out with something? But I tell a story about a gal who worked for me, and I could literally from my office see Garrett's office.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Here's the deal." They were people, they want to borrow money. I said, "We're going to get this. There's 11 topics. These 4 they can have. These 4 I'm not giving on. You just have to negotiate these 3.
Mm-hmm.
She sent an email. I said, "Oh, I said, go look them in the eye and say," because you can sit there. If I cross my arms in a minute, you're not getting there. If I'm kind of leaning in, I'm smiling. You send an email, what do you get? Somebody send it back in caps. There's no beeping way.
Yeah.
Or on the phone, I'll put mine on mute and I'll go, "Hey, Garrett, what's going on? Eric, what do you guys do?" Oh, yeah, we're good. Yeah. What's this fucking guy? You do stuff like that. You got to read people.
Yes.
At the end of the day, when you're playing for real marbles, you make your money looking the other man or woman in the eye. And I just don't understand that. And texting's wonderful. But guys under 40, they don't return emails.
Yeah.
I'll go to a party for our people that work for us, and the spouse will say, "Your husband can't return a text." And they go, I said, "But I know he's on his video game." He goes, "Shaun, he's on his video game all night long, his phone, all that crap." And I'm sitting there going, what's wrong with you guys? There isn't that cultural thing that was lost along the way. And I don't mean on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a 35-year-old son, and I tell him, I said, "Stephen, the world's not going to hell. And I'm not one of those old people thinks that, but I said, it's changed."
Yep.
There's not that. And I love the fact, Garrett, that you said, "I want to look the person in the eye," or "I want to meet him in person." That's how you win big game. You can't do that in little stuff.
Well, over Zoom, even if you get some of those same, you could almost read them the same as in person. but the ending is never the same.
When you meet someone, there's a
like
and
they
especially
could
when you
lean in and shit. Just
and I actually learned this, funny enough, from the book The Game by Neil Strauss. But there's psychology behind touching someone, whether it's a handshake or touching them on the shoulder or whatever. But the second you touch someone for the first time, a huge barrier is broken. And pretend you're trying to build a long-term relationship where the person doesn't ignore you any longer with someone in business or otherwise, a partner, woman, whatever. And you're trying to do that without having ever even touched the person. That person, without doing a handshake, is going to see you as someone that they can ignore an email from, that they can ignore a phone call from, that maybe they don't ever have to talk to again. But the second I meet with someone, shake their hand, have an initial conversation, there's something established in that, regardless of how it goes, whether it goes really well or just okay, to where you are now on a different level, so to speak, with this person, to where they're more likely to just humor the shit you have to say. And that's something that I hate about what we're doing. I mean, we work with people in the UK and people I'll probably never meet unless I go out of my way and fly out there and say hi. And that's one thing I do hate about that. Very much so.
It's hard to tell you no. Looking when somebody's at the table looking, it's very hard to get a no. The other thing we used to do, and I talk about this, we had a form letter for commitments. The last 3 pages were boilerplate, but I would have them type 6 different first pages with all kinds of different pricing. And then we'd sit down, I'd go, gentlemen, we've got your deal right here. Now, I got my commitment. What would you really like to pay me? 9 times out of 10, people will pay you more than you would have taken. The 1 out of 10, or let's say 8 out of 10. The one time, because 80-20 years old, the one time it's lower and you're not going to be able. The other time, it's 2%. Oh, then I go immediately. Area 2% a month? Absolutely, I'll do that deal. Well, now I've broken the ice and now we're negotiating again. But we'd sit there and you'd pick a number and my guy go, I can't believe it. And he'd pull out the pages that mattered and the one on top that had your number. And we made more money. And that was because we sat at the table, we looked them in the eye, we didn't send them an email. It was trying to read the situation.
Yeah, I'm missing that currently. I miss that kind of business. We inevitably at Vi Media, our marketing firm, we have to conduct a lot of business with people outside of St. Louis because there's only so many businesses in St. Louis. Additionally, we can only work with maybe 1 or 2 per industry. If we're working with the biggest, roofing company in town, we can't work with the second biggest roofing company in town because then we're competing with ourselves on various platforms. It's not good for business. So we have to seek outside of St. Louis. And as Eric's pointing out, because he actually just got back from DC and last night we were texting, and he was just telling me how important it is moving forward that we go to more events and stuff of that nature simply because of that in-person time he got with people. And I can't believe that for 7 years at Vi Media now, as of October 11th.
There's nothing better than meeting someone new, shaking their hand, having a conversation for like half an hour.
Yeah.
You get a lot more than going around and dealing with people only in St. Louis and trying to meet with people on Zoom and send emails and cold call and shit. They're right there.
Yeah.
Just go talk to them.
Cold calling's a great example of how hard it is to establish a friendship or build rapport with someone that you cannot see in person. I mean, you learn that real quick over cold calling. It doesn't matter how you open up the call. At least 50% of the people, if you're lucky, 50% of the people are going to be nice and not hang up or treat you like shit in some form or fashion.
That's right.
But that said, time blindness. Time blindness is the chronic inability to track the passage of time, and it can affect everything about a person's relationship to their past, present, and future. And then one more thing. Time blindness has been linked with ADHD, autism, mood disorders, traumatic brain injury, and even grief. So I read this whole thing while we were sitting here on and off.
AKA you're a fucking bum.
The bottom line is that, indeed, no matter which of the 3 articles I've read, time blindness is not actually classified as a sickness or mental disorder. It is just a phrase associated with actual mental disorders. So it's bullshit. Yeah, it doesn't actually exist. Unfortunately, websites like Psychology Today, Healthline,
Well,
et cetera,
Matt, can
cover
you
it.
tell the listeners what you told us before we started the podcast about your story of your previous job and the?
Yeah, so I still keep in touch with some of the owners of the other jobs I've had. He called me up one day and asked me what time blindness was because a young woman came in, said that she had a chronic condition and that she could not be at the 9 a.m. start time on time. She'd roll in like around 10 o'clock. And he was like,
No way.
well, that's not really how we do business. It's a 9 to 5 job. We need you to be here on time. If you run over by a few minutes, we're not going to stickler you about it. But when you're like an hour late, we can't have that every day. And then she started breaking down, crying. How dare you make fun of my sickness, my medical illness? And he was just dumbfounded. Like, he didn't know what to do. He was like, get out.
How
So she actually tried someone
she used
you
it
know,
as an excuse.
their employee actually tried saying time blindness.
So it was a new hire. Luckily, he didn't even give her a chance. She came in applying for a job, a position at this company, was like, hey, I have time blindness. I will be late every day, letting you know that. I still want a job here. And when he was like, no, she started crying, making a big thing. How dare you? What's the pop word? Single me out. How dare you?
No, she's a victim of time blindness.
There you go. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't. Yeah.
Let me say something.
We're going to be
real quick.
ableist
If
again
you-
here
if
on the
you're-
podcast.
If you're watching this,
Wait, we were
and
ableist last week. We're about to be ableist again. We need to show respect to those people with time blindness, Garrett.
Excuse me, audience. If you're watching this later, I just want you to know that if you ever applied at one of my companies and talked about time blindness in the interview or worked for us somehow, you somehow got the job, we'd fire you. And that we don't accept time blindness.
I would say that's like I would say arguably the one thing that matters is you showing up to work on time. Like that is the first thing you have to do.
Yeah, be
That's
15 minutes early to an interview, show up to work on time, don't leave 5 minutes early, and actually work hard. That's the weird thing. All of the younger folks nowadays, I feel like it's easier to be the best at something right now than it's ever been. I was just talking to someone how regardless of what society says, the human nature is that those who work hard, who kick ass, who research shit, who just grind out on getting stuff done. I mean, we're animals at the end of the day, and there's a hierarchy that's there regardless of whether you acknowledge it or not. And those who work hard are going to make their way to the top of that hierarchy. And just because a bunch of idiots say that, I have time blindness, or, this or that,
It's the
or
first. It's so good.
all this other stuff that they use as excuses nowadays to be lazy sacks of shit. I mean, that I feel like that only makes it easier for people who are actually going out there with old school values of actually working hard, being on time, and all these other things that we know as just parts of life, and like unspoken and spoken rules of work ethic, so to speak.
I think the best part of it was, I'm sure he didn't ask, because obviously he already started crying. If you're going to have time blindness showing up, are you also going to stay later at the end of the day because you don't know when to leave? Of course not. Your ass is going to leave 5:00 on the clock, gone. You're not going to stay after for half an hour.
That's
no,
true.
Yeah, get out of here.
That's true.
Oh my God, that's a really good point.
Yeah. Well, no, you can work from 10 to 6.
You know what?
No,
But
she
then
won't-
she'll show up at 11.
Exactly, and then
It's
she'll
a
still
never
work
ending.
till 5.
It's a
yeah.
never ending cycle.
She will never go past the time that she's supposed to be out because she knows that she's not time blind to her time to leave.
That's actually a
just
really
showing
good
up.
point. Anyone who got mad at me when
Wait,
I said that earlier, listen to what he just said.
Can we call? We need to call your boss after this podcast. We need to see if we can get her contact info, and I would love to call her live on the podcast.
Oh my God, I'm dead serious.
This would be so
we
good.
need to talk to the boss first.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
way we have all the context for the phone.
And if a lawyer's listening, if this is illegal, let us
It's
know
not.
before we do it.
It's
I
don't know
feel
if
like
it
asking him for her contact information is a no-no.
officially we won't.
Yeah.
Officially we found it online, but really we're going to get it from him.
Yeah.
So not against the law. Because it's definitely illegal to give out your employees' information.
I
to
would
random
assume
people.
application. Yeah, I would.
Yeah, not a good thing. But anyways, time blindness is just one of many things that are wrong with society today. What other thing? What was it? Ableism. Mr. Beast. Are you familiar with Mr. Beast?
Oh, where he's,
Yeah. Well, there is Mr. Beast Burger, but Mr. Beast, the creator.
No, just Mr. Beast burgers.
Okay. So the Mr. Beast Burgers was invented by Mr. Beast, but what he is for the most part isn't a food guy at all whatsoever. Even though he does have two foods companies, at least he has Mr. Beast Burgers and then Feastables Chocolate. But he's the most subscribed to singular person on YouTube and one of the most followed peoples on any platform.
Channel. Yeah.
Social media such as X, Instagram, Facebook, etc. And one of the things he's known for since him starting his channel is the first time he was ever given sponsorship money. He got $10,000, or one of the first times he got sponsorship money, and he actually gave that $10,000 away on video to someone else. And that was like his first 10 grand. And then he just kept doing that. And now he gets millions of dollars, and he always either does one of two things, does something crazy with it, like has a big competition, or gives it away to people just outright. And so basically all he's done to make his brand is be really nice to people and also throw really competitive shows where you can win money, which he's still giving the money away. They just only one person will get it, or 2 or 3 people will that were on a team, and they'll compete for the money.
Listen to these numbers. In the last 30 days, just on his main Mr. Beast YouTube channel, he has like the ones that go to like different languages and shit. So just on his main YouTube channel, one YouTube channel, in the last 30 days, 969 million views, almost 1 billion views on videos. On shorts, 2 billion views in the last 30 days on YouTube.
And yeah, just to put that in context, Mr.
That's
Beast
that's essentially 3 billion views across shorts and videos on his one YouTube channel.
Yeah, and
that's
he has a
fucking
lot of
crazy.
YouTube channels. He has them in, I forget how many languages, but it's like over
He was up to like 10
languages.
Yeah, he was up to 10 last time I saw, or last time I watched a video about him. It's crazy.
So he's got either 9 or 14 other channels where he's getting tons of views in different languages. So
His evaluation of his channel was like,
someone offered him $1 billion to buy him out. He said no.
well, yeah, someone needs to offer him like $100 bill.
Oh, yeah.
Like with those views, that's insane.
Well, Andy's only going to go up.
Is there even an evaluation on those views?
The reason I brought him up and why it's related to time blindness is I've been a fan of his since he was much smaller years ago, back when he was promoting PewDiePie before PewDiePie hit 100 million subscribers on YouTube.
T-Series? The T-Series?
Yeah, versus T-Series.
Yeah.
And
forgot about that.
he actually just caught a lot of flack not too long ago because what he did is he went into another country and he cured blindness with some sort of operation for people that had curable blindness for, I think, 100 people. He paid for it.
This operation is done all the time in the United States. It's cheap. It takes like a minute or something. It's literally something that can be done but obviously he was in a country where they don't do it.
Well, and
it's expensive usually.
Yeah, I was going to say it probably costs a lot here. That said,
thank God for insurance.
That said, he was called an ableist, which was the first time I had learned of the term, actually. But just to put it in perspective for the audience.
I was about to say, what is the actual term?
You discriminate against discrimination in favor of able-bodied peoples.
So you discriminate against people with disabilities.
Yeah. So
like Helen Keller.
They called him an ableist for curing their blindness because apparently they weren't good enough as is.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't know how many of the 100 people or however many it was. I'm pretty sure
it was like 1,000.
It might have been. But bottom line is, I doubt any of them were complaining that they can now see and they're no longer blind. However, the media even went with the whole ableist thing.
1,000
Yeah,
people.
but the problem is, right, so you have people coming onto your show. You know he's having them sign or give verbal confirmation that they want this to take place. He's not forcing anyone to get the procedure. They all want to be there. But then people in media are like, oh, he's a monster. How dare he do this? Blah, blah, blah. Don't worry about him, curing 1,000 people and helping them out and being a good person. Screw you for not accepting blind people.
Here we go. Okay, so it's actually not expensive. It's just in poor places, they just don't have it. It's cataract surgery. More than half of the blindness in the world is caused by cataracts. A 10-minute surgery at a material cost of less than $100 in resources.
I wonder
cures
how much
it
costs.
forever.
But now it has to be a specialized doctor, right? Because that's probably if you were to do it.
You
in
have to be an
America-
ophthalmologist.
So
Correct.
In America, that's where you pay most of your money is for the specialist, not really the cost. But yeah, so for him to take the doctor over there, they needed
he took
him
the doctor. Yes.
But screw you. Don't help people, I guess, is what I got from that.
So this doctor didn't
They charge $1,600 to $7,000 for that $100 surgery.
Exactly right.
No, that's per eye.
Oh yeah, my bad. Per
Well,
eye.
I don't know if cataracts is like
$3,200
per eye.
to
I don't know if you
$14,000.
need both eyes. But yeah, so he's a badass.
Yeah, no, he's a badass.
He's like, I donated all of this money this time, set this up, and now you're...
Well, and he's got Mr. Beast Philanthropy, which is a YouTube channel specifically dedicated to just all the money he's paying for philanthropy.
Philanthropic.
That.
There we
Thank
go.
you. Deeds. So,
Damn.
but all right. Let me pull this up.
I know we got to wrap it up
Yeah, we
here in
do.
a second.
Was there anything else you want to touch on?
We talked about it all.
All right. Shaun, before we wrap up today's episode, what social media profiles, business of yours, book, etc., would you like to plug for the audience to go out and follow to learn more about you?
Just go to my website, ShaunHayes.com, and I spell Shaun right, SHAUN.
Mm-hmm.
HAYES.com. Go do it.
Yes. We'll have the description as well, so feel free.
Yeah,
to
it'll
look
be
at
in
the
the description
Yeah.
down below. Okay. Shaun, that's all the time we have for today. However, the St. Louis podcast will be back next week at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time with a new episode, new guest, and unfortunately more of your host, Eric Brown. I probably won't be here, but maybe Garrett Atkins.
Katie Baker will
Oh,
be
yeah,
back
Katie
next week.
Baker will be back.
She took your position.
She did a much better job than I did.
Yeah,
She
you're
got
just
3 million views on TikTok. No big deal. Go check it out.
Yeah, so we were bringing up ableism and Helen Keller because last week we talked about how Helen Keller might be fake person, or maybe she wasn't blind or wasn't deaf or didn't do the things or she just wasn't real to begin with.
She
And it
flew
went-
across the ocean.
And it went off on TikTok. So now we're talking about it now because it's
There's
funny.
a big conspiracy
We got called
theory.
ableist and shit for talking about it. It's like we're just talking around a microphone. We're not experts on any of this shit.
It was
Besides maybe
comedy.
some of the stuff.
It was
yeah.
comedy.
It's fun.
But
Leave us alone.
ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this live or later and we said something wrong, said something you hate, or said something you want to hear more about, you can visit us at stlouispodcast.com and leave us a message telling us all about it.
Or make a stitch of us on TikTok.
Or do that. Finally, this episode was recorded at Half Coast Studios in St. Louis, Missouri. If you're looking to start a podcast or take your current podcast to the next level, whether you're local to St. Louis or walking on the Great Wall of China, reach out to us at Half Coast Studios.
They did fix the wire. They did fix the wire from last week. I was having issues. So shout out to Half Coast for getting it together out here.
Good job. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today, Shaun, and a pleasure hosting this podcast with Eric Brown and Matt back on the Roadcaster Pro.
That's right.
We'll see you again next week, Friday at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. Peace out.
Thank you.
Hey there, St. Louis podcast listeners. We've got some exciting news from our sponsor, Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, led by the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Lee. Mark Lee of Farmers Insurance is recruiting agency owners here in St. Louis.
That's right, Garrett, and everyone knows what Farmers Insurance is, and if they don't, they will now.
Yes, it's kind of a household name. That said, as many of you know, a large part of our audience is made up of badass business owners, entrepreneurs, and top producing sales professionals with an open mind like yourself. Farmers Insurance is currently searching for driven individuals who aspire to own their own business or already own their own business and want to add another income stream to join the Farmers Insurance brand and own their own insurance agency.
This is a stellar opportunity to build your own insurance agency from scratch, take over an existing agency, or if you're just a slow roller, we know you the guys out there and ladies, get paid to train under an existing successful agency owner before starting your own.
Holy shit, Eric. That means that whether you have experience as a business owner or you've never heard the word business before in your life, there's a pathway to owning your own business through Farmers Insurance Agency led by Mark Lee.
That's right. You can become a Farmers Insurance business owner even if you've been homeless in the past, just like you.
Yeah, thanks.
If you've ever dreamt of being your own boss, building a team under a reputable brand, and making a difference in your community by offering top-tier auto, home, and commercial insurance to consumers and businesses in your area, Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, led by the godlike man himself, Mark Lee, has the perfect opportunity for you.
Visit insurancecareerstl.com to speak with Mark Lee, the district manager of Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, to become a Farmers Insurance Agency owner today.
Did you hear that, St. Louis? Go visit insurancecareerstl.com. Insurancecareerstl.com. That is INSURANCE, career, CAREERSTL.com.
To become a business owner today, again, one more time, visit insurancecareerstl, as in St. Louis.com today. Right now, this second, or reach out to us at stlouispodcast.com and we'll introduce you to Mark Lee ourselves. And I promise he won't spell out insurance and career to you.